Did you know that the human brain is the only organ to name itself? Welcome back to Dead Dude of the Day, presented by Kingdom Lyceum. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Peterson, and today we're going to be talking about the father of modern philosophy. That's right, Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes was born in the year 1596 in the small town of La Haye-en-Touraine in France. His mother died about a year after he was born, and he grew up with his grandmother. Descartes' father was present in his life and strongly influenced him to study law. Rene's family was Catholic despite living in a Protestant-controlled area of France. And hey, if you want to know more about this whole Protestant Catholic area in France, there's a little bit more information about it in the John Calvin video that you can check out in the cards. Rene began his studies as a young man at Jesuit College in Anjou. He then went on to get his degree in law from the University of Poitiers in his early 20s. However, like some modern graduates today, he found no joy in the degree that he had earned. According to Descartes, he abandoned the study of letters, choosing instead to seek to understand philosophy. So it's important to note here that this began the formulation of Descartes' thoughts on several different fields: philosophy, theology, and geometry. Descartes, being educated in Catholic schools and a Roman Catholic himself, was heavily influenced by classic philosophy such as Aristotle and scholasticism like Thomas Aquinas. Descartes was famous, though, for serving as kind of like the bridge between the two older schools of philosophy and the modern philosophy that was so prevalent in the 17th and 18th centuries. This is why many view Rene Descartes as the father of modern philosophy. Descartes' first stop after leaving his father's dream of being a lawyer behind was as a mercenary in the Dutch army. He'd always dreamt of being an army officer when he was young. He ended up being tasked with military engineering. This outlet gave him the opportunity to develop many of his mathematical theories. Descartes began using what would later become known as Cartesian planes to geometry students to visually express algebraic equations. He is also given credit as the first mathematician to use superscript to express exponential equations. While serving in the Dutch Republic, Descartes wrote many of his most influential work. His first major writing was the somewhat unfinished essay, Rules for Directions of the Mind. Compiled in 1620, this essay introduced Descartes' methodology for logical thinking. A characteristic of Descartes' writings is his rejection of tradition. This rejection stemmed from his belief that knowledge could only become truth if experienced by the individual himself. He believed that the human mind could logically and rationally arrive at truth if it followed the right paths. Even then, Descartes still had his doubts, saying, "What, if anything, can I know for certain?" Descartes was on pace to publish more scientific and mathematical work in the early 1630s. However, he was deterred from doing so as a Catholic once he saw that Galileo was excommunicated by the Roman Church for his endorsement of the heliocentric theory. This was something that Rene Descartes also endorsed, so he tried to keep it on the low. Oh, yeah. This heliocentric theory sure makes a lot. What? No. I don't even know what that was. Earth is at the center of it all. In 1637, though, some of these writings were published in his Discourse on the Method. In this work, Descartes unveils the philosophical concept for which he is most famous. Get ready for some Latin. Cogito, ergo, sum. Now, I probably butchered that, but this is most often translated to English as I think, therefore I am. Remember, Descartes wondered what could be known for certain. However, he found a foundational bedrock in this statement. The fact that Descartes could think and doubt his own existence proved in fact that he did exist. I guess that works. I don't know. Senses are unreliable according to Descartes. Therefore, the only thing that can be trusted is the process of thinking. My senses can fool me. I might think I see something, I might think I hear something, but at the end of the day, I'm still thinking, and that's what makes me a thing, according to Descartes. This is also an indication of his religious philosophy. Descartes was raised Catholic and believed in many of the teachings of the Roman Church, although he would not be described as a moralist per se. His theology took more of a dualistic approach, believing that there is a physical world and a spiritual world. Perhaps his most read works both while he was alive and certainly more so after his death were Meditations of First Philosophy in 1641 and Principles of Philosophy in 1644. These two works elaborated on the implications of cogito ergo sum and his dualistic theology. His last influential work was actually published after a series of corresponding letters with Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia. The topic of their letters often included the philosophy behind passions. Passions here meaning impulses or desires, not so much like love and romance. The book, Passions of the Soul, labeled all passions as stemming from one of the following: hatred, love, desire, wonder, joy, or sadness. As a philosopher, he wanted to help people understand and control their passions. Due to rising fame from Meditations and Principles of Philosophy, Descartes had become the en vogue philosopher in Europe. Many were clamoring to spend time with him and pick his brain. One such person who desired more access to Descartes was Queen Kristina of Sweden. She invited Descartes to tutor her in philosophy and establish her nation's scientific academy system. This was a dream job for Descartes. Descartes agreed and arrived in Sweden only to find out that he and Kristina did not get along at all. She soon stopped attending their 5 a.m. lesson. I would too, to be honest. That's really early. Descartes became ill and died of pneumonia in a cold Swedish castle in 1650. Descartes' biggest impact was undoubtedly on dualism in existential philosophy. By separating his brain as a thinking thing from his unreliable senses, he devalued perception and elevated deduction and logical reasoning as the only method for knowing something to be true. This approach leads to the separation of mind and body in the individual. These concepts had a huge impact on modern physics, philosophy, and even some theology. Theologically, Descartes' work has positives and negatives. In his arguments for the existence of God, Descartes makes several solid philosophical points that must be considered by even the most ardent atheist. However, to Descartes, ethics and morality were scientific approaches that could be arrived at through deduction and logic. He did not base these ethics or morality in the truth of Scripture or the created image of God in all men. Rene Descartes' legacy profoundly influenced scores of significant contemporary and modern philosophers. His work in mathematics is still studied in secondary classrooms all over the world. His cogito ergo sum statement stands alone in philosophy books around the globe. These legacies easily make Rene Descartes quite an impressive dead dude of the day. We'll see you next time. Thanks for checking us out again today. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you can be always learning. We'll see you next time.